Hi guys, I'm Mario Frato and this is Making the Case. I just want to take a second to thank all of my new subscribers and the subscribers I've had since the beginning. Thanks so much for the support. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already and like and share this video. Something that's been really disturbing to me these past couple weeks is how Christopher Columbus has been under attack. Namely, statues and monuments to Columbus have been vandalized and also just totally destroyed or removed. If you remember a few years ago, they changed Columbus Day into Indigenous Peoples Day in some places around the country. So that was kind of the beginning of this movement. Now they've taken it a step further. And it looks like a lot of these cities are starting to cave. In Boston, they had the Statue of Columbus there decapitated. And then the statue was ultimately removed. And it looks like this time they've put it into storage. So it might not ever be put back to its original place. Also in Virginia, there was a statue of Columbus that was taken down and thrown into a lake. The reason there's so much outrage on the left against Columbus is because there's a narrative that he was committing a genocide against the Native American people. Now, while it is true that he did enslave some of those people, he wasn't committing a genocide. 90% of the Native American population did end up dying, but that was due to smallpox, measles, influenza, and other diseases. And let's not forget at that time that Native Americans were enslaving other tribes. They were doing cannibalistic rituals against each other. They were even selling their own children in exchange for food. So we can't assume that they were any better people than us. In fact, if they had guns and ships and arrived in Europe, we could reasonably assume that they would have behaved the same way that Columbus and the Spaniards did when they arrived. The fact of the matter is the world was a different place 500 years ago. The people that were here that are called indigenous people, if you believe in the out of Africa theory of evolution, then you know that they walked here from Asia on a land bridge, and before that they came from Africa. Now this is the way nation building has been done all over the world for hundreds or thousands of years. Basically, there's somebody in a territory, a new group of people arrive, they fight over it, and whoever wins ends up forming their own nation there, or city, or community, whatever you want to call it. So this isn't something new. This is the history of basically every country in the world. The bottom line is Christopher Columbus was ahead of his time. He was a true pioneer and risk taker. He was courageous and brave. He took ships that were never meant to travel that sort of distance in rough seas to the New World, and he was arguably the most important person ever in Western civilization. Take a listen to what liberal scientist Neil deGrasse Tyson has to say about Christopher Columbus.
Okay, I think him coming to America was the most significant thing to ever happen in our species.
Whoa.
I presume that you have some skepticism of this claim, as most people would, especially the Columbus haters who are out there. Now you have Europe, Asia, Africa, and North and South America, and they know nothing of one another. Two separate branches of the human species. The Vikings notwithstanding, maybe they came over, they didn't. Even if they did, their influence was near zero relative to the Europeans. Oh. So what I'm saying is, this was a hugely significant event, the rejoining of the branches of the human species.
Columbus was so revered by the early American settlers that the 13 colonies were referred to as Columbia in honor of him. And then when the country was formed, it ended up having the capital being named the District of Columbia in honor of Christopher Columbus. We also named universities like Columbia in New York and state capitals after Columbus. So he was really somebody who was respected and admired in our society. If Columbus were alive today, he would probably be an astronaut or some sort of innovator, and he certainly would be great again. Now, we can't punish him for living in the era that he did. Again, that was 500 years ago. Times were different. But Columbus was a great man, and he deserves our respect. Even liberal New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo realizes that Christopher Columbus is a symbol of the Italian-American contribution in the United States. It was Italians who initially got Columbus Day to be a holiday, and a lot of these monuments were put up by Italian-American groups. So this is a total slap in the face to those groups. Listen to what Governor Cuomo had to say about this.
I understand the feelings about Christopher Columbus and some of his acts, which nobody would support. But the statue has come to represent and signify appreciation for the Italian-American contribution to New York. For that reason, I support it.
Let's imagine if we applied the same standards that we're applying to Christopher Columbus to other Americans throughout history. Take George Washington. He's our first president. He was the general of the Continental Army against the British. He was also a slaveholder. Look at Thomas Jefferson. He was also a slaveholder who also fathered children with his slaves. But without those two men, we most likely wouldn't have a country today, and we wouldn't be able to have discussions like we are now about our wokeness or who's being disrespected or who's offended. It's because of great men like this that we're even able to have those discussions and the freedoms that we have. So are we going to change the name of Washington, D.C. because it's named after George Washington and Christopher Columbus? Are we going to take down the Washington Monument? Maybe take George Washington off the dollar bill? Well, those movements are already happening, and if you can't see that actually happening in the future, then you're really not paying attention to the left right now. Fast forward to some liberal heroes of the Democrats in the 20th century. Look at FDR, for example. He wouldn't support anti-lynching movements, even though his wife was a strong supporter of those movements. And the reason he didn't do it because he didn't want to lose Southern white Democratic support. Now, does that make FDR a racist? Look at President John F. Kennedy. He was a notorious womanizer. We know he had multiple affairs. He was also a staunch Catholic who was raised in the 1930s in the United States. Now we know that he wouldn't be in support of gay marriage. So would his treatment of women and his positions on gay marriage be held against him to call him a bigot and a sexist now? Should we rename the airport in New York? Should we take away the Kennedy Space Center? Where is it going to stop? I believe that most Americans are disgusted with the destruction of these monuments and they're sick and tired of the constant outrage mobs on the left. Now's the time for us to speak up and fight back. Guys, if you like this video, please like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for more. Thanks, guys.